Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, if you listen closely right now, you can hear the drums of war gain momentum. I know that sound. It's the same sound that led me to deploy to a dusty desert outpost in Iraq 20 years ago, where I served alongside some of the bravest men and women you could ever meet. It's the same sound that ultimately led me to run for office, a decision I only made after I was shot down in Iraq when I found myself searching for a new mission to serve my nation. I found that mission in giving a voice to every veteran who had willingly sacrificed so much answering their nation's call to serve. And I found it in speaking up for the active duty troops still waking up in dusty base camps throughout the Middle East, still serving tour after tour, bleeding, even dying, thousands of miles away because they had sworn an oath to defend the country they loved, no matter what it cost them. And that sound is why, a few minutes ago, I wheeled myself to this desk with the same purpose that took me first to battle, then the campaign trail. And that is to help keep America as strong as she can be and to try to look out for the troops who never stop looking out for the rest of us. Today, Mr. President, I am here in this beautiful chamber with privilege all around me to beg of my colleagues one simple thing. As tensions in the Middle East escalate, please, from this place of safety and comfort, think of the sacrifices our service members make every single day. Please, as the drums of war grow louder, honor our service members by thinking of what would be asking them to risk if we risk an expanded conflict with Iran. On Sunday morning, we all woke to the tragic, horrific news that 3 American soldiers were killed in an Iran-backed attack in Jordan. I imagine many who saw the news may not have even known that we had U.S. service members stationed in Jordan, but I was acutely aware of it. In fact, just 24 hours earlier, I had woken up in Illinois and helped to send almost 300 Illinois National Guardsmen off to start their mission in the CENTCOM area of operation, the exact AO where this attack took place. And since Sunday, I don't think I've gone a waking hour without thinking about the brave service members who lost their lives. Sergeant William Jerome Rivers, Sergeant Kennedy Layden Sanders, and Sergeant Breonna Alexandria Muffet. And each of them was willing to sacrifice the unimaginable to keep our nation safe. They are our heroes. During this impossible time, my thoughts are with their families, who will never be able to say, "I love you" in person to them again. And my thoughts are with the more than 40 other service members who were wounded in the blast, with at least 3 among them having severe enough injuries that they had to be evacuated to Germany. It's clear that we must forcefully and swiftly make those responsible pay for the devastation they have wrought and send a message that these attacks against our service members will not be tolerated. But we must do this with clear eyes, a steady hand, and a clear strategic end goal in mind, seeking justice and ultimately a swift end to these threats to our troops. I don't have all the details yet, but based on initial reports, it seems that President Biden's planned response will do just that. It looks like it will be a well-thought-out, strong rebuttal that aims to deter Iran from supporting further attacks on U.S. troops without risking boiling tensions even further. Because this is a uniquely dangerous moment. And the message we send to Iran must make war less likely, not more. After all, after decades of forever wars in the region, the last thing we want is to send those who volunteer to serve our country into another endless, senseless conflict. And if we want to adequately honor the sacrifices of the 3 service members killed last week, we must remain focused on preventing their brothers and sisters in arms from dying in a preventable war on foreign soil. Sadly, over the past few days, some of my Republican colleagues have been making reckless, irresponsible comments that risk dangerously escalating tensions. They've been throwing rocks, chest thumping over social media, beating the drums of war, demanding that the president ramp up the temperature that he, and I quote, "hit Iran now and hit them hard." Look, I ran for Congress so that when those drums of war started beating, I'd be in a position to make sure that our leaders in Washington fully consider the cost of war, not just in dollars and cents, but in the sacrifices and blood of our troops. So I've come to the floor today as those drums echo louder than they have in years to keep my promise to do our troops justice, to beseech my colleagues to let cool heads, common sense, and sound strategy prevail over reckless impulses. And if necessary, I will come back to this chamber day after day after day, speaking from this wheelchair that I earned the last time Congress rashly sent our sons and daughters into another endless, senseless war, ensuring that this time we do right by our troops by fully, soberly considering the consequences of these decisions on those who serve and their families. Listen, I am no dove. After all, I volunteered to fight in a war that I deeply disagreed with. So I am certainly not opposed to war when it's necessary to defend this great nation. And I am not opposed to striking Iranian assets if our approach is smart, limited, and strategically calibrated to end the spiral of violence that threatens our service members. But I will also do everything in my power to remind those who today are so eagerly pushing us down the path to war that there are serious repercussions involved for the Americans who would actually be in harm's way, even if they may not be felt by politicians here in Washington. Under both a federal law known as the War Powers Act and Article 1 of the Constitution, only Congress has a solemn responsibility of deciding when and how the United States sends its troops into war. So if Republicans really want to risk war with Iran, then they owe it to our troops to bring an authorization for use of military force to the floor. Instead of hiding behind social media accounts and television interviews, bring that debate to this chamber so that we can actually fulfill our duty and begin the serious business of considering the merits and drawbacks of such a conflict. So that as we ask them to sacrifice so much, our troops downrange would at least know what their mission is, what their goals are, and what their leaders in Washington, and that their leaders in Washington both have their backs and are following the Constitution that they are willing to die to protect and defend. Whenever Republicans are ready, if they're ever ready, I am here to participate in that debate. And if their arguments for war are strong enough, I owe it to my constituents to consider and vote on the merits of them. I myself would be the first to volunteer if you could have use of a gimpy former Black Hawk pilot, but I will go. I can pack my ruck in 15 minutes if needed. But for now, with those drums pounding once more, I just want to ask each of my colleagues to take a moment to think about the true cost of war for all those service members still at risk at dusty desert bases thousands of miles away. I personally cannot go a moment without forgetting them. I yield the floor.